Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to my Faith and Fiction chat. I am Angie Ochoa, otherwise known as the Introverted Bibliophile, and I am inviting my friend Alli to join in. And let me just get her. Okay, there she is.
Hi, can you guys see me?
No,
Huh,
not yet.
interesting. It might take a second.
Yep, I have a little circle going.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes these are so hard to figure out, right?
Yeah, this is only my second time, so hope everyone will bear with us here.
Sometimes this will happen when I try and join a live, like the video won't.
Won't do its thing. Okay, we are going to try this again. Thank you all for bearing with us as we figure this out. Okay, Alli, are you there? Hmm. Well, this might be interesting without my guest. She is having technical difficulties, it seems. But we're going to do this. We're going to get this. Lord help us. Maybe. Okay. Sorry everyone. We're going She's here, but she's not here in the view. So let's see if we can get this going. I'm so sorry, guys. All right.
There we
There
go.
she
Working out.
is. Yay.
Yay.
Forgive us, everyone. Both of us have been under the weather this week. We have both been sick in
hmm
different parts of the country. I have my cough drops here
Oh,
ready to
perfect.
go. I have my hot beverage. So I'm really excited about this interview with you, Alli.
Yeah, me too.
Um, Alli is a Christian YA author of such titles as Copper Lies, which is a steampunk novel, correct?
Yeah.
About a young inventor. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Copper Lies is about the adopted daughter of an esteemed scientist, and she accidentally creates a magical mechanical dragon and sets it loose on the town.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so fun. And then you have another book, Lawless, which is an
Mhm.
anthology of short stories.
Yeah, so I attended the company, which is a writing trade school located here in Cambridge, Ohio, and that was my second year project. So I led 14 different authors from around the world to write stories set in this dystopian, kind of like sci-fi world about the different judges from the Book of Judges.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. I may have to grab that to read aloud for homeschooling this next year.
Definitely, yeah.
And speaking of homeschooling, you are a homeschool graduate,
I
correct?
am a proud homeschool graduate.
Awesome. When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2017.
Okay, so 9 years ago.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I can't believe it's been that long. Yeah, almost.
Oh,
Almost
wow.
10 years ago. That's crazy.
Awesome. Okay, so then you also have the third book, right? Call It
Mhm.
Consequences.
Yeah, that's my most recent title.
And nothing, I'm not missing anything in between there, right?
No, no. I mean, I have a few short stories published, another one in an anthology called Fantastical Summer, and then a few on some online magazines. But that's all of my like novels like that I've published.
Awesome. Okay, so you are a sucker for the found family trope. Can you
I
explain that?
am. I am. I'm a big sucker for it. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just I was really the target audience for a lot of like Marvel stuff that was coming out, and that was something that was big in the first like Avengers movie, especially in like the fandom. But honestly, I think people who find each other and then seeing that those roles that God has created for family to provide, sometimes there are, characters or people that they don't get that, when they grow up. And so seeing them find that in like, in their adult life or in other people that aren't related to them by blood, I don't know, it just gets me, man.
Ah, well, I think you must know just a little bit about that. Tell us about your own family.
Yeah, so my family adopted 6 kids in 2014. They were a sibling set, so they were all related. And in foster care, it's really hard to get sibling sets placed.
Yeah.
And so my parents had a really big, I don't know, calling on their heart from God to just see. And originally we weren't going to adopt 6 because that's like a lot, right? So we were looking at 3. And then we got a call and they're like, hey, we have a sibling set of 4. And my mom looked at my dad and my dad looked at my mom. And my dad was like, well, we already have 3 kids. So like, what's one more than like 3, right? And that placement fell through. And so then we were like, okay, well, we could do 4. We could do 4. We. And then they got a call and they're like, well, we have a sibling set of 5. And my mom looked at my dad and my dad looked at my mom and my dad was like, well, what's one more than 4, right? And then, you just go up until we found our sibling set of 6 and we adopted them. And it's been a journey.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know if you know this, but we are also an adoptive family.
I didn't
I
know
have,
that.
yeah, I have one biological son who is actually in heaven. He passed when he was 26 in 2019. But we have 3 other children, and they are 19, 16, and 12, and we adopted all 3 of them through foster care, but at different times.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I
it's
love
just an
that.
amazing, yeah, it's amazing. And you also have a true found family person in your life besides your adopted siblings.
I do. Yeah. So technically, I mean, if you want to get legal about it, we didn't get to adopt her because she was an adult. She honestly, she's like my best friend. Her name is Shelby,
Ah,
and I'll always like brag on her. She was my
ah,
first fan of my writing. We met through a Bible study, and her parents were traveling the country, and she was attending college, and her housing fell through very suddenly and very dramatically, and she had no place to go. And at the time, we were actually looking at adopting again. We had an extra seat in our 12-passenger van. We're like, we might as well fill it, right?
all right.
And
Um,
so we asked her if she wanted to move in. I got rid of a bunch of stuff in my room so that she could be in my room, and then we really just became super close, and she found my writing and she became my number one fan then, and really has just been the
ah,
biggest encouragement to me in this journey.
I love that. That is so awesome. That is so awesome. I wanted to thank you real quick just for taking the time, even though you don't feel well,
Yeah,
to come and
absolutely.
chat with me. I'm so blessed to be able to be doing this. Let's talk about what you enjoy when you're not writing. What do you like to do?
I like to be a menace to my friends. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Although that is a big part of what I like to do. I'm really involved with my church out here. I think that it's just a great community of really like God-driven people. And so we do like worship nights. We help out around our town. So that's honestly, I do a lot of that kind of stuff when I'm not writing.
That's awesome. Do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I like to play video games. I think that it's a really great way to enjoy story in a unique and interesting way. Definitely like, watching movies, hanging out with my friends. I try to draw. I have what I call, oh gosh, what do I call it? It just left my brain. I like to try a bunch of different things. So I have a bunch of different hobbies that I've tried that I don't necessarily like keep up. You know what I mean?
I feel like that might come a little with like the ADHD.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah.
because I'm the same way. I have all these different things that I've tried, and I've loved doing them, and I'm like super hyper focused on something for a certain amount of time, and then it's like, okay, time to move on to something
Yeah.
else.
I love
So,
one of my favorite stores is Hobby Lobby because I go into their
uh,
lobby and man, I want to try all those hobbies. You know what I
yep,
mean?
yep, that is for sure. Okay, so tell me how your family feels about your writing.
Yeah, I'm honestly, they're probably my biggest supporters. So my dad is a engineer and he runs his own business, and my mom is a stay-at-home mom. She's homeschooled all 10 of us. And when it came time to me really looking into this like writing career, it was at a point in my life where I was really struggling with my health and with just a bunch of different stuff, and how it all kind of like came together. It was pretty clear that God wanted me to explore it. And so they actually paid for my entire schooling with it. They consider
Wow.
it like a college, and they continue to support me. I think my dad is probably my second biggest fan. I think he wanted to be a writer when he was in college
Oh,
and ended up being an engineer instead. And he actually is a patent agent now. So he writes patents for inventions. And so he does do
wow.
writing. It's more technical than like creative writing. And I think
Yeah.
the best thing has been once I've graduated, being able to bring what I've learned back to my dad and help him get back into like that creative writing.
Nice, nice.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you're at somewhere called the company. Is
Mm-hmm.
that okay? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the company is a writing trade school. It's the only in-person Christian writing school of its kind. It's a 2-year program that is vocational. So the day that you come is the day that you start doing writing professionally. And they teach you everything from marketing, publishing, writing, editing, every skill that you're going to need to make this into an actual career, you know, because their goal and their ministry is like the world is changed by words, right? Words are
Okay.
so powerful, story is
Yeah.
so powerful. And Christian fiction right now doesn't necessarily have the best reputation. There's a lot of Amish romance out there, and I
Yeah.
think we can do better. And they've really, you know, Brad Paquette, the founder of the company and my mentor, he really thinks that we can really influence media for true like Christian beliefs and values, and I agree with that. You know, so it was
I
kind of for
love that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're seeing more and more of that in the sort of Hollywood setting,
yeah,
right? Like in movies and TV, not necessarily TV shows, but I mean, we have the Up Faith and Family, and we have the
yeah,
Great American, what is it called now? Pure Flix. It used to be Pure
yeah.
Flix, Great
Hmm.
American Family, and so I feel like they're doing better because yeah, some of the stuff has been kind of cheesy,
Yeah,
but there's just been so much creativity that's come out. Like I used to just abhor contemporary romance novels because I was just
yeah.
like, oh, these are so bad. They're so cheesy. And I've read some this year and even last year, and I'm just like, okay, these are good. Like, I want
Right,
grit
yeah,
in my romance
exactly.
novels. I don't want all this,
You
sorry,
know,
Hallmark fluff, like
right, exactly.
predictability,
Mhm.
right?
Like, I don't need there to be a conversion prayer in every single story that I read, right?
Right,
Like, so
right.
many of those stories start from, I think, a good place of where we want to show the gospel and show, you know, how to like become a Christian and stuff. But it's like, let's be honest, C.S. Lewis did it and he did it well. And a lot of people have done it and they've done it well. But there's more to our walk with God than just the conversion, right? There's
Right.
so much more. There's that relationship there. There's that growing, that tension, the things that you like wrestle with God. Where are those stories,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because I feel like it gives us such a different perspective and expectation when a romance is nothing but, oh, hearts
Right.
and unicorns and butterflies and stuff. Like for those of us that actually deal with real life, we want to read real
Yeah.
life. And I think in Christian fiction also there has been, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. I feel like there's been where people have tacked on
Mm.
Jesus or they've
Yeah.
had their character go to church. And I don't want to see just that. Like I need
Yeah.
to see more. I need to see
Mhm.
that wrestling, like you said. So all of that to say, like, how do you balance faith elements without making them feel forced? Because I hear that
Yeah.
too. I don't want it to feel preachy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And honestly, I think that while it is a simple answer, it's an answer that you really gotta come to terms with. I think that your whole life has to be about God, right? Like it's not something that you can just tack on. It's not something you
Yeah,
can just insert in there. Oh gosh, what's that verse? It's in Luke, where out of the abundance of our heart, the mouth
the
speaks,
mouth
right?
speaks. Yeah,
And so it's
yeah,
like every area of your life, you have to be saying yes to Jesus. And then naturally, it will just come up in your stories. Even if he's not
yeah,
directly mentioned, you'll be able to see it no matter what, because it'll be everything that's in you, right?
yeah,
And that's a very hard, um, our flesh doesn't like that. The world doesn't like that. So you have to be like really committed to do that,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Okay, so talking about our faith and our stories, not my story. I mean, I have a story. I do, but it's
Yeah.
not written down. I don't know that I'll ever do that. But let's talk about your faith journey. Like, when did you come to Christ? How did you come to Christ?
Yeah. So, um, when I first became a Christian, that's a pretty dramatic story. I was only 4 years old, and at the time, we lived with my mom's side of the family, who not so great people. We don't really talk to them anymore. And I remember sitting next to a sunbeam in their dining room and talking to Jesus in the sunbeam and committing my life to him.
Ah,
And that was like the first moment, and then of course the enemy doesn't like that, and so lots of awful stuff happened, and I kind of lost faith that I was loved and that God loved me, right? And so when I became like an adult and stuff, I started really seeking, like, okay, well, what does God say about me, and what does a relationship look like? How are people actually hearing the voice of God? Like, what does that look like? And I think that just step by step, God has been so faithful in just meeting me like where I was in that, and showing me that, he did forgive me of my sins, and that he loved me regardless of what I thought about myself, and that he wanted me to step out of the lies that the enemy had really convinced me of, and to step into the truth, which is that I am loved and I am chosen, and he has a plan and a purpose for my life. So that's
yeah.
like the real quick like version.
I love it. I honestly feel like sometimes we just have to go through some tough stuff in life for God to really get a hold of us. Now, I do believe that there are kids who come to Christ, but with those life experiences, it's like, oh, no, this is really what it means to follow after Christ, to take up
Yeah.
your cross and follow him daily.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
amazing. Yeah. So, do you have any tips for any aspiring Christian fiction authors who might be struggling to incorporate their faith elements in a natural way in their writing?
Yeah. Ooh, that's such a good question. I mean, first and foremost, I would really recommend that you look at the community of writers that you have around you, because I think that a really big way that God can speak to us is by having that community that not just tells you, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and you're going to be a best-selling author, and you're amazing, blah, 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 right? But it will be like, yo, this is really preachy, or this writing just doesn't have the quality that it needs to tell the story that you're trying to tell, and then helps you like get there with that. So I think the first thing that I would look at is like your community. I think the second thing that I'd look at is your walk with God, and asking God to help you and partner with you in that. Um, that has been the biggest change in my writing, is when I started asking God to step alongside me in the writing, and to if I'm stuck on a plot or something, I'll take a moment and I'll be like, okay, God, what is your goal with this? What do you want me to do with this? And then just be diligent in seeking his voice, and being able to be corrected by the people in our life that are there to help us improve in our skills and in our writing and in our faith journey.
That's a really hard thing to do, is to
It
be
is.
able to take constructive criticism. And this is something that I'm learning lately. We've been going through some discipleship that talks about what we look like as orphans versus
Mm,
what we look like as sons and daughters. And you really have to be so firm in your identity in Christ to be able to take constructive criticism without feeling hurt and rejected. So
yeah,
those are really, really good tips. Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely. It's a good question.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about I wanted to find out what book or books or author would you say helped shape you as a writer?
That's such a good question. And honestly, it's like it would depend on what time of my life that we're like talking about. So I really enjoyed like the Artemis Fowl series as a teenager.
Okay.
Those were really, really good stories. I enjoyed them so much. Peter and the Starcatchers is another one. Really any version of
Oh,
Peter
I
Pan.
love that
It's
one.
all about, you know? But then something that I realized when I actually came to the company and started learning was that I was in a bit of a bubble. And I think that a lot of like Christian homeschoolers can relate to that of like reading stories that um, only our parents approve of or only like seem to fit in a specific way. Something that we have to do at the company is we read very widely a bunch of different stories that might not have content that we necessarily approve of, but that are like good fiction and has been recognized as good fiction. And then we study why and what kingdom elements can we find in it and where does it miss the mark in those kingdom elements. And so reading stories we don't necessarily agree with has helped my honestly my writing and my writing journey more than reading the stuff that I enjoyed.
Oh, that's really interesting. I don't think I ever would have thought of that. I know that as parents, my husband and I will take a movie that might have some bad elements in it that are extremely worldly, but then we take the
Yeah.
opportunity to talk to our kids about it and go, okay, so where could you possibly find God in this movie at all? You know,
Mhm.
and maybe it's a movie like Superman that we watched
Yeah.
in the theaters years and years ago, and it talked about how the world needs a savior, and it was like, well,
Mhm.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So
I
I
love
love
that.
that.
Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing school.
It honestly, it really was, and I could just yap about it forever. Let me tell you.
So we've kind of seen how you feel like your Christian faith shapes your storytelling. So let's get to your most recent book, which is Call It Consequences.
Mhm.
What made you want to write that book? And is there any real event or person that inspired it?
That's such a good question. So I wrote Call It Consequences the summer of my second year, right before I graduated. And I actually wrote it because I had to. It was assigned to me. So in our time at the company, we write one novella, which is like 30,000 words, and then we have to write two novels before we can graduate. And I'd already written my first novel, and so when you go down to write your second, you have to create three different plans, and then together with Brad, my mentor, we picked those plans. And at the time, I was really believing a lot of lies about my intelligence, and he was trying to convince me that every idea that I'd come up with had a sci-fi leaning, and I really wanted to go for the more like less explained sci-fi, which is what we call like soft sci-fi. And he was really pushing me outside of my comfort zone and telling me that I was intelligent enough to write a harder sci-fi with like more rules and like this is the actual science of it. And I disagreed with him because I thought that I was not smart enough. And so I created three plans, and the third plan that I created was this like time travel novel that I'd come up with, and I presented the plans to him. And he was like, you need to write the third one. And I was like, Brad, I don't want to do that. And he was like, okay, give me one good reason why you shouldn't write this plan. And I'm not smart enough is not a good enough answer. And I had nothing to say to that because he
Ouch.
was so right. Right? Yeah, a big ouch. But that's what was so impactful about the school to me was that I wasn't allowed to stay in my comfort zone with that. So to be able to graduate, I had to write a time travel novel. And it really pushed me outside of my comfort zone, but then it also showed me that God created me to be capable, and it might not be perfect, but he's not calling us to perfection. He's calling us to obedience, right?
Yeah.
And so I wrote the novel, and I would say the person that really inspired me the most was my dad with that novel. You know, the ways that as a child I didn't see or understand how he was loving me, and then coming to that
Um,
realization as an adult that he loves me so, so much, you know?
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so speaking of the characters in this book,
Mhm.
like, do you feel like you maybe shaped Lorraine's dad? I have to say, I read this book aloud to my 12-year-old and we enjoyed it.
Yay.
So like we know Buck and
Yeah.
Lorraine's dad, and yeah. So did you shape him after your own dad?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Awesome.
I made Lorraine's dad a little quirkier than my dad. I made him a little bit more extroverted than my dad. My dad's a pretty big introvert. But that relationship between Lorraine, who's very artsy, and then her dad, who's very scientific, and the just the differences in that, and how Lorraine was struggling with relating to her dad, that was something that I really struggled with as a teenager, because again, I didn't think I was very smart, and my dad is a literal genius. I think his IQ is like
Wow.
150 something, right?
Oh
And so
my.
I was like, man, I will never. I was like, I guess genius just skipped a generation. Like, you know, the lies that the enemy tells you. And so being able to find a way to relate to my dad through story. We both really enjoy coffee, and just finding how he doesn't necessarily tell me with his words everything that I need to hear, but I can see in his actions how much he loves
Mhm.
me and how much he supports me and how proud he is of me. And so I really used that like teenage angst that I had
Ah,
as
I love
inspiration.
that.
And
So
then
you
with that,
wrote yourself
I did.
into Lorraine.
I had a big moment of panic when I realized, and I'd finished the draft, and I was like, oh man, I just aired all my dirty laundry.
But it turned out so well. I mean,
Thank you.
I think those are things that all of us go through at one point in our lives, that teen angst.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any part of the book, any scene from the book that feels especially personal to you?
That's such a good question. Let me think on that for a second. I want to give a good, not spoilery answer. You know, I think honestly, any scene between Lorraine and her dad, I really base that relationship off of my own dad, but then also off of the relationship I have with Christ. And there's one scene in particular where the truth all comes out, and Lorraine is met with just like complete and total unconditional love. And that to me is probably one of the scenes that I relate to the most, because that's just how God is with me, you know. And I
Yeah.
finally come to him. He knows the truth already, and I finally come and I confess and I repent. And that is beautiful, of how he just swoops you up into his arms and
Yes.
accepts you anyways. You know,
Yeah.
that, or the really, really at the end scene when she finally sees her mom again. That one is the only scene I've ever written where I've actually cried while writing it.
Oh, why did you cry?
That's such a good question. I honestly, I thought of my own mom in that scene, and I'd never considered those things. So that's like part one of that answer. Part two would be, I have a lot of people who are close to me who did lose their mom at a young age. And as I was writing the scene, I was thinking about them, and I was thinking about how hard that must be and what they must feel like as they've shared different things about their journey with me. Honestly, a huge inspiration for that scene and how it came about was just the empathy that I have, and just how they've shared their own story. I wanted to give them kind of like a voice in that scene.
Oh, I love that. I didn't lose my mom young. I lost her last year, but it was still
Mm.
really, really hard. And I can't imagine someone going through that at such a young age. But you did such a good job at writing that. And like I was feeling
Mm.
Lorraine's emotions and I was feeling Lori's emotions. And I'm not going to tell you the difference between the two if
Yeah.
you're watching, because you need to read the book and you'll understand. It's so, so good. So What is your hope that readers will feel after finishing the book?
I hope that they feel forgiven. I hope that that makes them really consider how they view themselves and their own past mistakes, but then also how they view the people that hurt them, and how everybody has a side to the story. And God calls us to forgive, even when that's really hard and even when we don't understand. And I really hope that it sets them on a journey of seeking that out and what that looks like for them and what it looks like for their relationship with God.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. I like that. So I have to bring up the fact that your book is not overtly Christian,
Hmm.
but you have it based, like there's an anchor
Hmm.
in your story that points to God, that points to Christ. Can you tell us about that? I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of have, sort of.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it comes back to like the Book of Esther, right? The Book of Esther doesn't name drop God at all. Yet we can totally see how, um, or maybe it's Ruth that I'm thinking of. But there are so many stories in the Bible where God isn't explicitly mentioned, but we can still see him and see how powerful his presence in, especially through story, or like the parables that like Jesus tells, right? Like those are so impactful and so powerful. And sometimes I think that we think for a book to be Christian, we have to name drop God, or we have to have a conversion prayer, or we have to have an atheist who is converted, or we have to have like these specific elements when God is present in everybody's story, right? And he's present in just like everything that we like see. Like he knows and he is there with us as we experience those things, even if we're not aware that he's there, right? So I have this author note at the end of Call It Consequences where I go into faith, what I imagine Lorraine's faith journey to be, because she's not a Christian in the book. She makes a lot of mistakes and she's a very, very flawed person. And I think about how I think after the events of the story, she's laying in bed at night and she's thinking about all of these things. And bit by bit, God shows her where he was in her story. That's what I imagine for Lorraine.
Yeah, I love that. Do you feel like writing Christian fiction has strengthened or challenged your own faith in any specific way?
Mm, that's a good question. Um, it has challenged my fear of being judged. By other people. A lot of people, especially when I produced Lawless, were very concerned. Lawless is probably the most R-rated book of the Bible. There's a lot of hard things that happen in Lawless, and the world talks about those things, and God clearly talks about those things in the Bible. So why am I, as a Christian, not allowed to talk about those things and about how God has an opinion on those things, right? So especially the very last story in Lawless is inspired by the last story in Judges, which is a horrific, horrific scene of this woman, and she gets cut to pieces and awful things happen to her. And I had people come to me and be like, okay, well, so you're writing this like ambitious story about the book of Judges, right? But surely you're not writing about that chapter. And I'm like, well, why not? Why can't I write and see and show people where God's glory is in that darkness? Because he's present in that darkness. Like there is a glory and there is light and there is hope even
Yeah.
in darkness. And what does that look like? And I think the author um who wrote that story actually changed my perspective on that story in the book of Judges, how he pulled and showed where Jesus was in his fictionalization of that story. It was so powerful and impactful. And I'm like, we would miss that if we shied away and we were scared to talk about the hard things, you know?
I think that is maybe an expectation in Christian writing where they don't want to read the hard things. They kind of, I mean, and I feel like it's not just Christian writing. I think that there's secular writing too, where
Mhm.
you want it as an escape to where
Yeah.
you're not having to deal with the hard things, but I appreciate being able to see that in the books that I read that, like, oh, I can identify this person who is dealing with the sin of anger or dealing with the sin of pride or whatever. So I love that. I love that you didn't hold back in that, and that
Thank you.
that's challenging for you as well.
Mhm.
All right. So now I'm just going to ask some just for fun questions, if
Okay.
that's okay.
I'm so okay with that.
Okay. So what's your favorite format for reading?
Ooh, physical books for sure. And
Okay.
I'll admit this, I dog ear my pages. I know that's a writing sin. I know that's a reading sin. I don't care. I think if you dog ear your pages, then you can go back to the scenes where you really liked just real quickly, and you can also study where did you stop reading, right? And so when you're done with the book, where did you lose interest? Where did you have to take a break? And then you can implement, like you can see. So it's multi-purpose that I do this, okay? I'm not just doing this to like piss people off.
You know, they have products made for that kind of thing now, right?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, I bought this little annotation kit, like
Oh,
set,
fun.
and I these this is some of it. I don't know if I'll ever use these because they're
Yeah.
circles, and I'm like, this doesn't help me. But they're see-through, and you can put them on something on a book.
Oh.
So,
So you
and they're
can make a
sticky.
note but still see.
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. I
I
think
am
I'll still
old
dog ear my
school, like
pages though.
dog earing. Ah, okay. What is your favorite genre to read?
Oh, dystopian. Hardcore
Oh,
dystopian fan. I love seeing hopeless situations have hope, you
my
know?
husband is a huge dystopian fan, and he's actually watching us right now.
Fun.
So, hi. And my daughter is too. I have a 16-year-old daughter who loves dystopian stories, and they like them for the same reason because there's that grit and that feeling of
Yeah.
hopelessness. And I know that there's a secular writer who I have read within the past few years. Her books are incredibly hopeless. Like, I feel
Yeah.
so oppressed. She does not bring hope to them at all. And I'm just like, oh,
Like,
you
come on,
can't,
I need
like,
like a breath.
you didn't see
Yeah,
this.
no, I feel that. I feel that. That's what I love about like Hunger Games. Hunger Games was one of my favorites growing up. And it ends pretty sad. Like she's a very traumatized person, but it also ends with that hope, right?
Yeah,
And I think that that's important.
I haven't read those.
I
Sorry.
love Hunger Games.
Okay, favorite book ever.
Oh, that's so hard. How am I supposed to choose?
Okay, give us one of your favorites.
Man,
I
man,
mean,
one
it
of my
could be
favorite.
Frog and Toad's adventures
Yeah,
from
I'll
childhood,
I'll
or
get to this. I think my favorite author is probably Patrick Ness. And I haven't read all of his works. But I do really, really love A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. It is a beautiful, beautiful story of grief and that journey of going through something really hard. And his writing style, oh man, if I could write half as good as Patrick Ness, man, you know what I mean?
I actually have never heard of him, never read his book, so I might
Highly
have to
recommend.
give that a look. All right, if you could meet one author, past or present, who would you want to meet and why?
Can I say the author of Hebrews so I could figure out who they were?
Hey, that's a good
Yeah.
one. I mean, that totally counts.
Okay,
That's
cool. That'll be my answer to that then. I'm
okay. I
so
love it.
curious.
Okay, dream place to visit if money and time were not an issue.
Oh, every single Disneyland park.
I've been to three. They're
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
I grew up right around Disneyland in California, and we lived probably 30 minutes from the park. And so
Wow.
you get a discount on passes when you live that close in Southern California. And so growing
Yeah.
up, going to Disneyland was my PE, you know?
Hey, that's a good
It was
homeschool PE.
You know what? It was a good childhood in that regard. I was like, yeah, that was amazing.
I can imagine. All right. Favorite writing or reading snack?
Oh gosh, coffee would be the drink, but snack, Oreos maybe? I like a good
Okay.
Oreo or Sun Chips.
Okay.
Mhm.
All righty. All right. And last one is, what is your favorite guilty pleasure?
Mm, that's reading fan fiction.
Okay.
You
Hey, I
know,
mean, everybody has their guilty pleasures,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I like AO3 because you can really edit the stories that you don't want to see, like the explicit ones or the ones with like certain tropes that I'm just like, I'm not about reading bad things like that. But
Yeah.
reading this like really self-fulfilling, angsty fanfic of stories that don't have any more content to produce, or I'm waiting for a show to come out with the next episode, that's my guilty pleasure.
Okay. Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for giving us a little glimpse into your
Yeah,
world.
thank you
And
for having
I,
me.
I loved getting to learn more about you. This was so fun. Let's talk real quick about
Yeah.
your amazing giveaway. Tell us what you're going to give away.
I'm gonna give away a signed physical copy of Call It Consequences.
Awesome. And you said you're going to add a few other little goodies to it.
And
Uh,
yeah, so there's
we can
a
leave that as a surprise.
oh, okay, I will. I will.
Okay. So if you're watching this live or if you watch it after it's all done, be sure to go back to my post from
Mhm.
Tuesday where you see Allie's beautiful face and you can enter to win a physical copy of her book, which means this is only open to people in the United States. And that is for postal reasons. I'm so sorry, but yeah, go enter to win because it really is a fun book. So thank you to everyone who has joined in. We really appreciate this. And a huge thank you to Allie for chatting with me today. It's been a lot of fun. And I also wanted to say, be watching, be following me, because if you're not, you're going to miss out on upcoming faith and fiction chats. And I actually have some really fun authors coming up. So
Me
be sure
too.
that you're
I'm so
following.
excited to watch those.
All right. Thank you so much, Allie.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I appreciate it. Have a good evening because it's evening where you are now.
It is. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get some chicken noodle soup and I'm gonna relax.
Feel better. Yes,
Thank
feel
you. You
better.
too. You too. You
All
have a good
righty.
day.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.